3, 2, 1.
And it's live.
This is Leicester Till I Die TV. Watch and subscribe on YouTube and listen on your podcast platform.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome along. This is Leicester Till I Die TV. We're going to be talking change this afternoon. Now, I don't mean change in like the Bruce to Caitlyn Jenner sort of amount, but we're going to be talking about changing the players. If I've got Tom covering his eyes already, I'm doing well. But welcome along. It is Fox's Forum. If you're watching live, please do click on the like button, subscribe if you haven't, and share if you are got anybody that is interested in Leicester. If you're watching on catch up, you can do the same again. And also, if you're listening via your favourite podcast platform, thank you very much indeed. Just my B&Q moment as I give myself a unashamable plug. Join us tonight at 9 o'clock for the brand new Late Football Show. I will be joined by Dan the Burnley fan, and we'll be talking all things Leicester. And I don't know if you've heard, if you've sort of just been on the moon or, been been hiding away somewhere. Brendan Rodgers has resigned, so he can actually do that from Celtic. And the majority shareholder wasn't too happy with him, let's put it that way. And I must admit, I was looking down that list of things that he said, and I'm going, yeah, I agree with that. Yep, I agree with that. And of course, we've had Brendan's reply as well. 9 o'clock tonight, Brendan branded decisive and toxic. No shit, Sherlock, eh? Wayne is in. He says the toilet rolls need changing for sure. Or can't you buy tissues and blow your nose with those instead? It all gets a bit messy otherwise. Terence says, a bit like AU, you're late. What can I say when you're working with this lot? Ronald's in. Hi, Ronald. How you doing? And Bluey's in as well. Hiya, Bluey. Welcome along. And I have got, like I say, I tried to make some changes, but you'll see the beautiful one isn't here. The second most beautiful one is. Thank you very much. I have to be here. And Craig, the wise old owl, is still here, and we got Tom in because it's kind of Tom that gave me the idea about this. Gentlemen, good evening.
Good evening, Chris. Good evening, Tom. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, Craig. Good evening, Chris. And I guess you have to replace Beauty with the Beast tonight, my friend.
Well, it appears so. Now, like I say, we're talking changes, and I want to make this clear right at the start that we are not saying we need to change the manager here. I mean, I think we just need to that straight. There are, although obviously if we did, Brendan's available. But if, all controversial, if, what we're talking about now is changing the way that we play, the maybe the players, the formation, because what we've got, let's be honest with you, Tom, isn't working, is it?
Well, it's not reproducing the amount of goals we need to produce. I read that horrible stat after the weekend where our individual player XG right now on the pitch is sitting lower than Norwich. And where are Norwich, everyone? 23rd in the league. So it just shows you our inability to score from open play. I'll quickly take you back to the first game against Sheffield Wednesday. We had to win that game by scoring corners. Now the corners are drying up as well, and all these things that gave us that little bit of extra. So it probably suggests a system change might be required, Chris.
Craig, I've had to stop because I was sort of saying for so long with Marty, well, look, he's only been here so many games. This is still like pre-season. Can't say that anymore. But in fairness to him, he is trying to polish a turd, isn't he?
I think that's a little bit far. I think what you've got is, yes, because every one of these players is a professional footballer who's played at a very high level.
Let me just correct you there. Every one of these players is a shit professional footballer. Carry on.
That's not true, is it, Chris? Because if that was the case, they wouldn't get to where they are. So the question remains, why are they not performing at the level that they should be performing? And that could be a number of reasons. They're not buying into what the manager says. They don't have any footballing brain or what I would suggest, heart or desire. And I think that's the thing that's missing in so many modern footballers, that these days you just have to turn up, you collect your wage packet. It doesn't matter if you do well or not. Unless you've got that burning desire and hate losing, which when I used to play, I hated losing. I hated it if we'd lost and we walked off the pitch and I found some of my teammates sort of smiling. I don't know how you can. And that, for me, is the biggest thing, that lack of heart. But they're all good players at heart. Otherwise, they wouldn't be at this level. And you know,
they're all good players, but nobody else would buy them but Leicester. I mean, I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying, but having heart doesn't make you. I'll come back to you in a second, Tom. But having heart doesn't make you suddenly a good player. I mean, 2 words: Luke Thomas. You know, he's a local lad. He's got heart. He really wants to play for Leicester, and he was probably he cost us 2 goals at the weekend.
No, it doesn't in itself. But he's not a bad player. He's a professional footballer. You know, he's slightly better than us. But you know, and you can look at Liverpool and Brentford, which is the most talented team. Which was the most talented team on that pitch, and which one had more heart and desire?
I didn't watch the game, so I can't.
Well, I can tell you, Liverpool were by far the most talented team, and Brentford were the ones with the heart and desire, and Brentford won.
We will be talking Liverpool tonight as well at 9 o'clock. Thank you for the link in there, Craig. Brilliant.
That's the point I'm trying to make. You know, that you can be good players, but unless you've got that as well, and your whole team has got it, then you're not going to be successful. And I think that's where we're lacking.
And I say, I play devil's advocate or what have you. Tom, I mean, we used to have a thing, I don't know if they still do, called a win bonus.
Yeah, that's right. It plays everyone's contracts, Chris.
Do they get a win bonus? Do you think that is still used these days? Because if it is, I'd be out there making sure I want to bloody win if I got another couple of grand.
I would imagine so, but I'd also argue perhaps part of the problem isn't the players themselves, it's the environment the players are existing in. Because if you look at Conor Cody, for example, who's now moved to Wrexham, I'm pretty sure he quartered his wages from Leicester to Wrexham, or at least knocked a third off. Does that suggest maybe we were overpaying him in the first place as a base salary figure? Does that bring in a little bit of security almost, but a little bit too much security in that you're going to get the money either way, or like Craig was suggesting there, which of course nowadays with football can take away some of that passion from it as well. Like you say, the Man City director of football, I read this the other day, he removed a general win bonus per game and put it on trophies. when he came in there as a massive change. Because, of course, under the first era of it, under people like Mark Hughes, for example, maybe the Robinho era, the Balotelli era, they were getting bonuses out of their backside, basically, but they still weren't particularly winning a lot at that point. It took a bit longer to get there. So, like you say, I would argue there's something in the club that's probably gone wrong here. And I think that is where the club needs to financially and, more importantly, secure itself at the base level to ensure a playing squad doesn't get to this position. Because how many times do we see players that haven't performed at Leicester go on to another team and do something we weren't expecting, right? I mean, Sumari could be the next one if he ends up at Roma, right?
I think the other thing, when you go back onto the next show, Chris, when we had Rob Tanner on, a lot of the blame for those contracts and players that we've got on big money contracts lays directly at the door of Brendan Rodgers, not Rudkin. Obviously, Rudkin's involved. Brendan Rodgers pushed for these long, expensive contracts because he wanted to try and hold that team together. And now we're paying.
Is that a bad thing?
No, it's not a bad thing, but there's got to be a line drawn. You've got to understand the size of the club that you're at. And yes, I was the first to say that what we did, we all, and the club themselves got brought up into the hype of we're in the upper echelons of the Premier League and believed that they could stay there. It's not sustainable.
No.
You've got to look at the size of your club and understand where your mid-line place is. And then if you have a good season, you'll improve upon it, but you don't put it into a situation where it can fall through the floor. Coming
back on that, because I mean, I got roasted once for saying this, but do let me finish before you jump down and tell me I'm talking out my backside, which is what I do most of the time. I won't deny it. But in a way, was winning the Premier League, I mean, it was fantastic, don't get me wrong, but was it in a way for the club, Tom, one of the worst things we could have done? Because then we tried, having done that, the club were then in a catch-22. Do we carry on as we are, buy in, journeyman players and the Danny Simpsons and the free signings, or do we start going out and paying 30 million, for Slimani and what have you? If we hadn't gone out and bought the 30 million for Slimani's, the fans would have soon been peed off, but that put us in the position where we were still only Leicester. Let's not forget this. Yes, we'd won a Premier League, but if we were going in for somebody as Premier League champions and Arsenal were going in as second place or Tottenham as third place, we were still third in that particular race.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because the club's gone through probably 2 or 3 evolutions since then, or evolutions, however you want to pronounce it. But the one you're talking about in particular is obviously we cobbled together a team of pretty much £26 million in total, the outlay was, that won the Premier League as 5,000 to 1 underdogs. From there, I think we went into the market of what Brighton are doing now, which is we buy cheap and sell high. And then we went to the Brendan Rodgers phase, like Craig has brought up very rightly so. Brendan has also done this at Celtic by all the accounts. He spent £20 million on players that he ended up benching and not playing, and they had big contracts as well. And that has caused some discourse, not to ruin your show for later, but as a nice little preview and a little throwback to that. But I think where we went wrong was we never should have gone past stage 2. I think we should have realised the financial footing of the Premier League, our FFP obligations, the money we're going to be able to make commercially, compare it really well with everyone else and gone, well, we're going to have to stick to that formula of the Fofanas buying for X amount and knowing we're going to have to sell them for a profit. Because you compare us to Brighton, who are probably, I think, the best comparison. Brighton are never in a relegation battle. Some years they're in Europe, some years they're not, but they're remarkably stable for a club that came up to the from the Championship, what was it, a decade ago now?
But I know what you're saying, but Craig, that's not Brendan's fault because Brendan wasn't here then. That was Ranieri's fault. It was Ranieri who said, I want to go out and spend 30 million on Slimani. It was Ranieri who went out and said, I want the captain of Switzerland to come in. And I've got this great defender, Bueno Luin, whatever he was called. How many of those players that Ranieri signed, which were expensive signings, actually were a success at the club?
Not many. I'd take Slimani out of that because I think he could have been. Let's put it that way.
Then that was Ranieri doing what all the managers are doing, which is buying a player and then not playing to his strengths.
But The thing I would say to that is they were clearly not on exorbitant wages because we shifted them all on. That's the difference.
We lost on Marnie, didn't we?
We lost on it, yeah, but we shifted him on, is what I'm saying. There weren't wages. Yeah, I mean that's football. Yeah, not everyone's.
Yeah, but we didn't get any money for Slimani. He went on a free at the end of the day.
Yeah, because they decided that they weren't going to play him for whatever reason. Yeah. Not get hooked up on one player. The thing was, we were in a very difficult position. It's almost like that, you know, the club had got to that point, had won the Premier League. Then we end up with what we all believed at the time was an elite manager. This is like you having, you know, all of a sudden having the girlfriend of your dreams that you can't believe that you've actually got. And you're spending all your wages on her or whatever and everything, doing everything you can to keep her sweet and doing whatever Brendan said because you wanted to keep this elite manager. And by the time it all crumbled and he'd been divisive and toxic in our changing room, all those players were on contracts and he just walked off into the sunset. And I know someone said, Terence, I think, did Brendan push for Luke? I'm not saying he's the fault of everything, but he started a trend that put us in a financial situation that we haven't managed to get ourselves out of. It's not just his fault, but he was complicit in it.
Totally. But again, you know, he had to because we were top 5, top 6 at that particular time. And if we hadn't been doing that, let's be honest with you, they're in a no-win situation, aren't they, really?
Exactly. We would put ourselves in a position where it was like stick or twist, and we twisted, and then we bust.
We did. You know, when you have a sandwich at the top table and you look around and you see the chicken and the pork and the beef, you're thinking, "Oh, I'll have some of that, please," and then you get the bill at the end of it.
Yeah, when you look at this, you know, the whole thing comes down to like 2 or 3 games in terms of how different the last few seasons could have been. Just clinging on and hanging on into that top 4, or I think Maddison not missing the penalty against Everton. You know, we end up getting relegated. 2 or 3 little games, little moments, sliding doors moments in football can make such a big difference.
Oh, totally. The other thing, Tom, before we move on to the main topic for tonight, players used to get a play bonus, didn't they? So if they actually went on the, you know, turned up on the pitch, that they would get a bonus for that. I mean, surely they can't be doing that now because we've got players coming on for 2 minutes and not even touching the ball.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I think that is a part of the agent's role in modern football. I think that's changed since we've won the Premier League almost as well. The power of agents now has grown so much, and the money in the game as well. We keep saying it, the money's incredible, right? And the players, like anyone would, like if I was a comedian, I want more of the money, wouldn't I? You know, I want more from the gate receipts, you know, all of us would. So I think that's the way the game's naturally gone. And I think the best clubs realise the discipline required and how you run yourselves and having that, like I say, financial discipline in order to keep that under wraps a little bit and keep it in the right place, which serves everyone well. But I think that is difficult because I think the problem we had, just got you to wrap that point up, was that, like Craig was saying, we were literally a couple of seasons off being a pretty solid top 4 team for two or 3 seasons almost, right? When you get to that point, what would the club do? I mean, the fans would have probably been upset if we had just banked the money and then dropped out of European places next year anyway. However, there also probably needs to be a little bit of nuance to go, is this sustainable the way it's going, or are we just heading onto a disastrous path where if we do end up getting ourselves in a mess, we're not going to have an easy way out of it? And unfortunately, it was the latter path we fell into, right?
It was that house of cards, like you say. One card is pulled out, and it all comes tumbling down. Kevin, that was what I was laughing at. Kevin made me laugh. Daka could play 90 minutes and still not touch the ball. I have to say, for the watch along at the weekend, I was actually saying, look, let's just get Daka on for somebody with some speed. And somebody that was in the watch along said, he's been on for 5 minutes, Chris. I didn't even know he'd been on. That's how awful he is. Right. So what we've done, I gave you 2 young gentlemen, I should have gone to Specsavers, a challenge. I said, because, you know, especially this guy under this side of the university challenge, kept saying we're playing the wrong formation, this isn't working, and, you know, as I'm getting fed up with everybody's playing this formation because that's what Pep did, and look at Pep. But then again, if we had the millions of pound players that he'd got, we might actually, win a game every now and again. So I gave you the challenge to go away, come up with, I thought it's always a sensible question, come up with a different formation that we're going, that you would like to see against Blackburn on Saturday. Now, one of you did. One of you didn't so much. But look, we'll talk through it. First of all, let's start with, because this is what I think. This is how not Brendan. You see, you got me at it now, haven't you? This is how Marty, I think, would set up for this this weekend's game with the players that he's got. I think we'd see Stelarczyk in goal. Oh, Brendan, go away. Brendan, go away. I'm on a show. The ex-wife. So anyway, Stelarczyk in goal. Ricardo at right back. I think he'll bring Faze back because I think Akoli made a couple of mistakes, and Akoli's only allowed to make mistakes in one game, and Wout Faze can make them in 3 or 4 and keep his place.
Akoli also completed the most passes of any of our players at the weekend. Even though he made some mistakes, he completed the most passes.
You can score a goal, let's be honest with you, and be dropped. Vestergaard, who is our best defender. Thomas, who must have something on Marty because, he's always picking him. Unfortunately, I think we're going to have Soumare and Winks together, because I think he will move James forward to the number 10 role. Yeah, I'm not saying this is what I want. This is what I'm saying I think he will do on what he's done in the past. Monga, I think he'll start with Fatu on the side, and I think he'll go back to Ayew. He is our top goal scorer when it comes to strikers, with 1. But would you agree, guys, that is probably what he is likely to go to?
Well, I would say it's probably likely, Chris, but it makes me realise I'm quite glad I've predicted Blackburn to win in the prediction league. It sounds awful, doesn't it? I mean, my heart is breaking, but we've seen just the inability for us to score, and it seems to be going like this, doesn't it? It doesn't seem to be getting better. So, and I don't like seeing James out of that position where he plays better in for me, so that's a concern. But that is obviously due to a Ramsey injury, and we're quite handcuffed there because of what the squad we got.
Yeah. Craig, do you think that's kind of what he'll go for?
I think the formation's right.
Yeah.
I think the personnel will be different, personally.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, those are the players that he has picked, and last time Ramsey was out, James was moved up there. I don't agree with that at all. I wouldn't want that team, but I do think that's what
I agree with that. Yeah, I don't think Monga or Ayew will start, personally. But it's interesting looking at that, the big sort of furore that you talked about my formation. And it's like one of those little patterns, that you've got a triangle here and you need to move one piece and it forms another shape. If you look at that, one piece moves and it's my...
I jest with you.
I know you do.
I
know you do. But I think Mavididi and Carranza will play instead of Monga and Ayew.
I have a feeling if it's not that Ayew may start on the wing again.
Potentially.
Just saying.
The saddest thing is, I think the big thing before we get into this, the big thing for me that Marty needs to do is decide his team and keep playing it. Because it's all about relationships on a pitch. And when they're changing from week to week to week, you're not going to get those relationships. I think he just needs to say, right, this is it. The rest of you've got to work really hard in training to force your way in. And because it hasn't, it's not like he's been changing it and we've won 5 on the bounce. So you might as well just pick a formation and a team and stick with it. I don't think it can.
You mean like Rude did last season?
No, we're talking about a different manager. Let's not do something else.
No, but this formation has just lost 2 games, and I understand. Forget the results. we can't say, well, we lost, but we went down fighting, like, under Pearson in the Great Escape year. Tom, the last two performances have been almost rude-like, haven't they?
Yeah, they've lacked energy, I think, at times. I mean, I don't know if it's Marty's tactics telling them to when they start a game to hold the ball amongst the back four and pass it around and then try and pass their way through teams, encourage teams onto us. Right, that would make sense. The problem is teams have worked that out in the last few games, haven't they? So what happened was we'd end up passing it, kicking it along to Fatawu, losing the ball and coming under pressure every time. So I hope that is something that's been worked on. I don't think it's helped, like Craig is saying, though, moving James around in particular, because I think James was doing quite a good job as a linchpin in the midfield role, then put him into attacking mid and then back again. Like you say, it doesn't create that sort of stability, does it, in how we're going to
the thing is, he scored 2 goals from that defensive midfielder role. But you tell me, Craig, Tom, because, and then we'll ask the same question to Craig, but Tom, first of all, because you wanted this, hands off Scott Parker. Dan, the Burnley fan. What can we say about you? You send us a bloody player that's not fully fit. He gets injured again. Bloody hell. Unfortunately, I was the bearer of bad news about that for Dan. He hadn't realised. But do you think a change of formation is needed? Do you think that is something that will turn things around for us?
I think it's the only choice we've probably got at the moment, because I think we're seeing a trend with our ability to score is getting actually less and less. And I think it's also that we can question players' attitudes, but ultimately a losing team is not going to be a happy team again either, is it? And we've gone through a lot of this. And I think actually a bit of refreshment to the shape and something for more positive mindedness to go into the team and go, look, we're going to try it this way, guys, because it might lift the group as well, I think, rather than them potentially banging their heads against brick walls when this isn't working and getting themselves frustrated as well, right?
Yeah, I get it. Same question to you then, Craig.
I think something needs to happen, doesn't it? And you can't keep making wholesale changes. So the most disappointing thing is what is said and what is done, because I think we're all encouraged by the things he says, but that never seems to translate onto the pitch. That we want to be a team who's constantly pushing forward. We get the first goal, we want to go and get the second, we want to get the third. It doesn't work out that way. We have a lot of play. I thought against Millwall we started the game pretty well, but it doesn't translate into goal attempts. And just putting the ball in the box. We're saying, you put the ball in the box, it can bounce anywhere. You've got more chance of scoring if the ball's in the box. And we just don't get it in there enough. So whatever we need to do in terms of a shape to have the ball in the box more often, I think is a positive. And that's the change that needs to be made. Yeah.
So, Craig, we're going to go with yours first. What formation? Yeah, so get it out of the way. What formation? Tell me, what formation did you go for?
I basically went for a 5 at the back. So it's 5-1-3-1.
5-1-3-1.
And I can fully explain my thinking.
Oh, I'm going to ask you to.
I know you will.
When I went on, and I had to go on to, I didn't use this graphic anymore. I use a different graphic that I'd never heard of this 5-1-3-1. Great. I mean, this could take over. This could revolutionise football, couldn't it? The way that Pep did. Yeah. So I had to come back onto this, and they didn't have it, but this at least allows me to move players about, so I could make up your formation. And here it is. So talk us through this, Craig.
Okay, the idea behind this is that in its simplest form, we can attack with 6 and we can defend with 7. Okay, and that's what I don't think we do. So basically, we've got 2 wing backs who create the width, and our wingers sort of play slightly inverted. The problem with our wingers at the minute is they've been coached, and this is going back to Brendan, I think, who wanted his wingers to hug the touchline, and which means you've only got one way to go, because we're becoming predictable, I think, And these are two talented wingers for me who can go either way, but we restrict them to basically, it's like putting them in the outside lane of the motorway. They can only come inside, So what I want to see is our wing backs providing the width. And the reason I put Christensen in there, and I know I could have gone with Aluko, is for me, that's his best position. Last season when he played, he didn't play a lot, but he had the best conversion rate of crosses, of accurate crosses out of our team, Christensen. He can run forever. And I think that's what we need, because we don't get Mavididi, Fatu, Monga, whoever it is, have no interest in tracking back. So the idea behind this is that we can push our wing backs forward to create more width, have 4 attacking players in front of them, and then what you've got is a solid back 3 with Farce acting as the shield in front, because he's better coming out with the ball. He's more progressive than Winks. Winks, who just wants to play short 10-yard passes sideways and backwards. And if Farce makes a mistake, which he will, it's not in the penalty box. He's more likely to break down attacks and counter-attacks than Winks is. There's some footage. If anybody thinks Winks has been brilliant, go and watch the Portsmouth game and have a look at their goal. Now, Carranza got a lot of stick for losing the ball there, quite rightly. The guy who took the ball off him was the guy who scored the goal. Harry Winks was 3 yards away from him, who could have put a tackle in, who could have done anything he wanted. Then you look where those two players are when the guy receives the ball back in the box. Harry Winks is 30 yards behind him because he's just turned and jogged. Someone like Farce would take the guy out, the old Man City.
Would he? There's a couple of
times. At least try. Let's put it that way.
Okay, I'll give you that. Okay,
because Man City, they were called out for it. They would. I bet if you looked at Man City over the years they were winning the league, most of the fouls they concede are in and around the halfway line because they just break the play up. Arsenal do it now. They just stop the momentum of anyone breaking against them. They don't mind. They'll share it out. Different players will take people out. But for me, what you've got there is 3 strong centre halves with another one sitting in front as an enforcer, with 2 guys on foot as fullbacks who love bombing forward. And then you've got 3 sitting in behind a central striker. And the central striker doesn't have to get involved in play then. He can just stay in the box. So I think that offers us a much more progressive formation to get forward and score goals.
First of all, let me just say Tom's probably creaming himself at the moment because you put Faze in midfield. I think I've been screaming at that.
I've been saying about it for ages, and I thought I was the only one who could see it. But thank you, Craig. I think he'd make that position really good.
Yeah.
Do you think, Craig, that Nelson and Vestergaard can play together? The draw is out for me, but everything I read is, well, they're 2 similar players.
I don't. They're defenders at the end of the day. If they can't play together, they shouldn't be playing football because you can't do that. Yes, some players will connect better with other players. They do. There's a natural thing of whether you're right-sided or left-sided. I'm not sure where Nelson's best position is, to be honest. But for the sake of them, you can't have Vestergaard either side. He has to be there in the middle, because he hasn't got the pace. So the other 2 are the ones who will then fill in. When the fullbacks have gone forward, they will be able to fill in either side, fill that gap so you're not counter-attacked against, and then Farce can drop back and make the 2 central defenders if we're being counter-attacked against. That's the thought. And you don't really need the rest of the players to be coming back. Have them up there for your own counter-attacks.
Yes. Well, do you know what? When I saw this, Craig, when you sent me this through, and I'd kind of stopped laughing, but I do, all joking aside, I do I get where you're coming from here. You know what my first thought was?
Go on.
This is my age here. My first thought was, although it is the wrong way around, do you remember we used to have sweepers?
Yes, I do remember when we used to have sweepers. You'd have the 2. I mean, this could easily turn into a sweeper system where that's a V shape where your
Yeah.
two wing backs are pushed up to the halfway line. Then you've got a Coley and Nelson there, and then you've got Vestergaard sitting in slightly in behind.
I mean, that was, like I say, that sprung out at me, and because I'm thinking, like, let's be honest with you, love him or hate him, our best defender this season has been Vestergaard. You know, without a shadow of a doubt. And what he does is he'll just stick his foot out and take the ball off the other guy. You know, the simplest thing, but he can do that. Now, you know, if you're giving him the freedom to say, right, just patrol that back line, we don't need you necessarily to go forward because we know, too far forward because we know you can't get back. But from that position, you can ping your balls over the top, with the accuracy that we know. If you're looking at that, how would you say if I said, well, yeah, I see where you're coming from with that, but Vestergaard, let's say, slightly sat back. What would your thoughts be on that?
I haven't got a problem with it, to be honest, because unless if people are pushing right up against you, then you need to have a line, because the danger is that if Vestergaard is too far back, then he plays everyone on. So higher up the pitch, it becomes a bit of a problem. And Vestergaard, I think in the Millwall game, somebody got in round the back, and it was because Vestergaard had dropped back 5 yards beyond the rest of his back line and playing everyone on. So you've got to be careful that back line. And this is where I talk about playing together week in, week out. That Arsenal, the most famous back line of Arsenal, played together week in, week out. They trained together week in, week out. They all knew what they were doing. You can't do that when you're changing all the time. So that would be my only issue with that, is if he drops, then clever runners from midfield are going to get in between the other two, and he's going to be playing them on side.
I mean, I wouldn't say that was a permanent position.
Yeah.
As part of that back five, but when needed, that's his role. To make sure there's cover there in case of the guys. Yeah,
what he does is stop you getting done like Liverpool did with that fantastic ball that Damsgaard played at the weekend. You didn't see the game, Chris, but that's the pass of the season so far for me.
But I feel with your description like I was there.
Yeah, but it just one pass split all of them. And if you did have that little bit of a buffer, then they would have been able to sweep that up.
The other question I'm going to ask you on to this, and is Christensen.
Yeah.
Now, look, I've defended Thomas as much as I can, and I think I'm pleased that he's not in there. And I hate saying that, and somebody will like, Michael's not in, but if Michael was in, he'd be going, there we go, everybody's blaming everything on Thomas again. Well, we lost 2-0, and the 2 goals were both down to Thomas. The way I looked at it, I mean, Winks gave the penalty away, but it was because Thomas, hadn't done his job. Now, Christensen, do you remember when Enzo took over? Mm-hmm. Enzo wanted to play a different role, and he didn't want to do it, and that's why he was shipped out on loan. Yeah. Was that this role, or was that a different role?
This would be his dream role.
Okay, sorry, I wasn't sure. Yeah.
Yeah, this is what he what Maresca wanted was one of his fullbacks would be inverted into midfield, and the other one just had to stay where he was. Christensen cannot do that. His natural instinct is to bomb forward. I remember seeing him, I think it was his full debut, away at Villa. And we beat them 4-2, I think. And Christensen had a fantastic game, and he never stopped running up in support. Because what you've got at the minute, you've got 2 wingers. Remember the old days when people used to make overlapping runs?
Oh, I do. I'm going, but you're going back in time a bit there, Craig. But
so what we see at the minute is Abdul cutting in to get a shot off. The defender knows that, and there's no fullback running around the outside to put any doubt in the fullback's mind about which way he's going to go. Is he going to come inside but then switch it to an overlapping fullback? No, because there isn't one. So it makes us really easy to defend against. I think this formation and these personnel, and that's the key, make it much more difficult for us to be worked out and just gives us a lot more attacking threat.
like I say, I do like Christensen, and I do remember when he was playing, he played a few games under Rude. But when he actually got up down to the line to get the cross in, there was nobody in the box.
No, this is it, and this is why I've got James further forward, because I think with that, those four sitting back behind, you can afford to gamble a bit more and get players in the box. You know, your other, whether your other wing back wants to go forward or hold back a little bit, if he wants to go forward, he's coming in from the other side. You've got James attacking the box. You've got Carranza attacking the box. You know, your two other players are going to be sitting there picking up the pieces, and your crosses are coming in from your wing back. So I don't know. I'd like to see it. I think it would be a bit of a breath of fresh air.
Yes, I mean, you know, I am so fed up with 4-2-3-1. You would not believe it. I said if anybody's having a building a bonfire on the 5th of November and you need a guy, please nip up to the Etihad and pick Pep Guardiola up and do us all a favour. The thing as well on that side, when we were last in the Championship, I think I said this to you at some point, Tom. The thing I remember is Mavididi and Fatawu doing a defensive job. Monga doesn't do that, so that's probably a bit of a problem for Luke Thomas. Is, you know, if he does go up, there's nobody there. And it was interesting against Millwall that once Luke Thomas was taken off, they actually then concentrated on the other side. So they were attacking all down Luke Thomas's side, and then he came off, and they were attacking down Ricardo, who was ever on at that point. Okay, I can see why you've gone Mavididi. I'm surprised no Monga in there.
For me, he's still a kid. To expect to get, you know, a good length and consistent performance out of him, I think you're asking a lot. I think he's much more dangerous if he comes on for 20 minutes, to be honest. That's what I'd like to see. And the same, yeah. And, you know, Aluko, I think, is probably at a point where he deserves his chance. But the fact that he's versatile makes him ideal to be sitting on the bench if Ricardo tires, Christensen tires, or whatever. He can play anywhere along that back line. So rather than start him, I think if he's eased in, but I don't think it's helping Monga giving him that length of time at the moment.
I think some of the time there was because there was an injury to.
Yeah. There's always going to be extenuating circumstances sometimes that you've got to put him in, but.
Yeah.
Ideally, for me, he's an impact player.
Yeah. That's the team you've picked for this Saturday. 12:30 kickoff. And we'll give that a promotion in a second. I want to ask if Ramsey was fit and available, and we know he's going to be out for a few weeks. Just our bloody luck, isn't it?
Yeah.
What changes would you accommodate Ramsey in there?
Well, by the time he's come back in this formation,
no, just saying if he hadn't had that injury. Would you
potentially, because I think he's been really good. I think you know, someone asked me a question on Twitter, I think, because a lot of people were coming out and saying it's time for Marty to go, blah blah blah. You know, 10 games into a season, ridiculous. And they said to me, you know, why is he getting a free ride or whatever? And I said, he's not getting a free ride in my opinion. He's got criticism, and quite rightly. But if you look at the three players, I think, and someone will correct me, the three players that he was responsible for bringing in, two of them, James and Ramsey, have been our best players.
Yes, 100%.
You know, without a doubt. So that tells me that he can spot a player. Yeah, it becomes difficult with Ramsey still being in there. Potentially, you'd drop James back. I don't know, but I don't think. I think his natural instinct is to get forward as well, which then leaves you a little bit exposed. So, you know, if I was being on the wages that Marty's on, then I'd give you a proper answer, but I'm not.
Oh, somebody said, are you Keir Starmer in disguise with that answer? I think you are. But no, I don't know. I was going to say, this is the team that you've picked for this weekend. Ramsey isn't there. I'm just wondering if Faze would have been dropped back into defence with James dropping into that role and Ramsey going to where James is.
Yeah, potentially.
And I'm going to go up front, Carranza. No,
Yeah.
you've seen him. I haven't. And this is something that Tom said, that we don't want to be in a position with these players where we don't have reserves anymore. So, when these players come on and we say they're ring rusty, they really are, because they're not playing regular games. When you had reserves, midweek games, these players would be in there. You can drop a couple into under 21s, fair enough, but you can't do it with everybody. Carranza, look, it's when he played the 60 minutes. Was that against Hull? I think he had one shot on goal. But you've got to give him the game time, haven't you? Because do you remember Iheanacho when we first got him? He wasn't getting any game time. 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there. So do you? Well, you've obviously put him in. So you're thinking of sticking with him and give him the game time and give him a few matches.
I think so. I think he at least deserves the opportunity to be proved that he's not up to it. If that makes sense. Because what I see, a lot of criticism, online criticism, is all focused about the final action. What happens when somebody's got the ball. What they don't necessarily see, like I called out Winks, all of that was off the ball, is lack of a challenge and lack of tracking back. People don't really pick that up and say, "Oh, Winks has been great." Carranza makes so many runs when he's asking for the ball in between defenders. When I'm at the ground, I'm sort of level with the 18-yard box, and you see him so often want the ball, making a run in between defenders and just putting his hand out saying, "Give me the ball." He doesn't get it because you've got Winks who wants to run with it or play a sideways pass, because we're not progressive enough. So I think he deserves the opportunity to play in a more attacking team, to be honest, where the ball is in the final third a lot more, and then see what he's up to.
You see, that's what you see being there that we don't see, being... being
the camera's following the ball. Yeah, I
exactly,
get it.
Yes. So, and fair play to him then, yes, I agree. We should be giving him the
when you think about how often we have the ball in that final third, it's unfair really to then judge a striker.
Yeah. Are we playing to his strengths though?
No.
We've signed this player.
I can't remember the last time we played to a centre forward strength.
Exactly.
I don't think we've played to a strengths since we won the title. I'd said another thing, I'd have Drinkwater over Harry Winks every day of the week, because Drinkwater would take one touch and it would be a through ball or a ball over the top, because he knew where his striker was going to be. And I think this is, I'll just last thing on this. I think that kind of ability is being coached out of players to have like a 40-yard sphere of opportunities, that when the ball is going to come to them, they're going to look, is anybody making a run in behind? I think we've been coached so much to keep possession that their sphere of where they look around is like 10 yards. Where's my next 10-yard pass? Not where is my 30-yard opportunity to play someone in behind. And I think they've been so programmed to that players making those runs are just not picked up anymore.
No, it's a fair point. That's your team, and straight after this, Tom, be ready, because we'll be looking at your team. So if you are ready, we will just do this. And he said if you can press the right buttons, which is easier said than done. So listen up, Foxes faithful. Don't miss Leicester City take on Blackburn Rovers this weekend, live on Sky Sports with Now. Can Leicester City turn around their recent poor form against the struggling Blackbird side and return to winning ways? You can catch all the action live on Sky Sports with a Now membership. So if you don't want to miss a moment of the build-up and match, you can stream Sky Sports on Now flexibly, like watching Leicester versus Blackburn Rovers this Saturday morning, this weekend as well. Search nowtv.com. There's too many buttons for me to press. I need to get this sorted out and
You
find
stop the music. The music's making me feel quite sad, Chris.
Well, it's either that the other music everybody said reminded them of Pornhub. I don't know how.
Poor old Simon Bates, this is.
Everybody, I'm back. You can't hear it.
No, we can. We're just not reacting.
Yes. Right. Anyway, shall we move on?
Please do. Yeah, that was a bit weird. Yeah. The advert was great. The advert was great, Chris. It was just like, yeah, the bit afterwards.
Look, what can I say if I'm popular? Tom, you have been shouting for weeks, and now Craig can sit back. His moment's over, and we're going to critique yours, and you'll both have a bit of fun in a minute when you critique mine. Ronald, I know you say that, but I'm happy to take the money. Thank you very much for advertising it. 352. You've been screaming at it for ages.
Yes, I have, mate. Yeah. For a basic reason of we can't seem to be able to make one striker up top work. So why not do the right common thing and put two up there? I think then actually you're creating a chance for yourself to score more goals, aren't you, as a starting point?
So talk us through the team. You've got Stolarczyk in goal, obviously. The back three, a Coley on the right, Vestergaard in the middle, and you've gone for Faze on the left, who I used to absolutely hate when he was on the left. But he did all right on Saturday when he came on.
He did, yeah, exactly. And my reason for choosing Faze over Nelson is simply for the reason that I think Faze, like Craig rightly put in his team, is very good at carrying the ball forward. He would literally be a ball playing defender in this formation for me, whereas a Cody and Vestergaard wouldn't. So the idea would be that if we got three at the back, Faze is going to be the one that will be more likely to run with the ball and advance it into midfield to join up with Winkser in particular, who we know with Winks, if you're going to play him, he's better off staying kind of where he is. That's where he's most comfortable. He likes his little passes, and he could be a bit of a shield then, but I think you cause a bit of uncertainty in the middle, having Faze coming out into that midfield role, Chris.
I mean, you've gone 3-5. It could just as well easily be a 5-3. And, that's the thing with this formation. It can either, depending whether you're defending or attacking.
Yeah.
Ricardo on the right, I think it goes without sense. Although you did, I think you made the point that always seeing him coming to the end of his time, he's not the Ricardo that he was even when he's not injured. But again, like Craig, two minds, and what they say, Christensen on the left.
Yeah, well, I think the thing with Ricardo is it makes me think, I wish we kept Koulibaly around or managed to persuade him that he didn't want to go, because we kind of needed another option for right back and left back who's a bit more mobile as well, right? And we haven't got that outside of Ricardo or Thomas and Christensen, right? And Thomas has had a horrible time recently. I think teams have found out and started exposing him, right? So it isn't fair to put him in for this game for me. I think if Christensen's fit, get him in there. It's a similar position like Craig says. I would have him literally bombing up and creating the width like Craig wants. That's exactly, he wouldn't be inverting anywhere, none of that nonsense. Same with Ricardo coming up with the width as well. So I think that's interesting. But interesting about my defence tying into that is you can then do a thing where Faze can drop back, a Cody can even go to right back, you see. Winks can drop back into it. So there's always going to be four there. But it does allow Ricardo and Christensen to provide some width as well. We just have that bit of training and rotation into who goes at what time, Chris.
Is this team able to do that? I mean, they seem to struggle with different formations and what have you.
It's true, but if you train it, you train the intelligence of why we're doing it for whatever reason and why, which is what I would look at it as if I was training them. I would drill it into them why we do this at this time and why we do it. And a lot of it will be about when you spread the play onto what side of the pitch, and that's how we pivot, right? And also, like Craig was saying with his formation, it makes us more unpredictable. It means people can't target individuals knowing we're static in a certain place, right?
Okay. Winks in the pivotal midfield role.
Yeah, he'll be the more defensive midfielder. I wouldn't expect him to really go beyond halfway line in this formation too much. He would just really be there to act as a defensive shield, also to lay off some passes, and also to find people like Page and James next to him, who you'll get to now, I'm sure.
Almost like, having sort of one player in front of the defence, really.
Well, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Same with FaZe. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, the thing with FaZe is I think FaZe can overlap Winks, which I think is an interesting thing. And I think putting FaZe back there actually means it's very, very much more difficult to mark him, you see, and also track him as well in the midfield. And we know what FaZe is like. He's actually, when he's back on the back line, he's weaker than actually when he's facing forward and coming forward. He's a much stronger player when he's coming forward with the ball. He's even got a shot on him, Chris, hasn't he? I mean, he could bring a bit of unpredictability to that central midfield position, especially when we've looked at transitioning the ball in the centre midfield has been a problem for us at times.
I love to see FaZe go on a bit of a run. It reminds me so much of Maguire and to some point Soyuncu as well. You see him going, and I don't know who it was, whether it was Millwall or Hull, but he started to go on this run, and nobody was stopping him. I thought he was going to literally whip the ball into the net.
He scored against QPR, didn't he, when Cifuentes was in charge against him, doing exactly that.
Hi, Paul. How you doing? James, you've got in there, and you've got he's our best player this season, isn't he?
Yeah, I think so far he's added the most value to the team, like Craig rightly pointed out, because he's brought a bit of unpredictability. Because I always thought he was a box-to-box player, but actually he's more of a roaming playmaker because he was turning up everywhere. He was turning up on the left, just outside the box. He was turning up a bit more deeper. And when he was fully committed to that, it was causing problems for teams as well. So that's why he's in there. And it's the other reason I put Page in. I know Page is a bit of a contentious decision perhaps, but what I saw from Louis Page in pre-season was he had the ability as a box-to-box player, more so in the attacking mid that we tried against Charlton, where I felt he looked a little bit exposed, a little bit fragile. I think if he's carrying the ball forward like James can, I think that can really combine well with the Ricardo and Christensen alongside them and cause a bit of chaos as well.
He's kind of been forgotten about, Louis Page, hasn't he?
Well, we say that, but there must be. I think bearing in mind, it looks like Sumare is probably going to go in the January transfer window, and maybe Winks as well. I wonder if it's a long-term view. Well, realistically, it makes sense, doesn't it? Because there's rumours, and obviously they're going to be out of contract in the summer. And let's be honest, they're not signing new deals, are they? Because they probably want to move on. So that's understandable. So I would hope it's with a view to have him come in when they go. There's like a succession plan in place because we might not have any money again, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'll come back to that in a second. Two up front, I mean, oh my God, I mean, we'd be sat there with tissues, wouldn't we, if we ever had two up front again? I mean, apart from for the last 10 minutes, when he's throwing like 3 or 4 up front. Look, you've gone Carranza, and you've also gone for Mavididi as the second, or the player just off Karanga's shoulder.
Yeah, interesting one. This would be quite contentious, perhaps, but I just kind of feel Carranza obviously is a bit more of a complete forward, so he gives you an option for a long ball, which I think is good. You can win that second ball off Carranza. I think Mavididi sometimes his game gets a bit complicated in that he's either too isolated and he's too far out to the left. He tries to take on too many people, all the rest of it. I kind of want to look back when he was a young player for Arsenal's academy and when he was actually a striker. And I think the thing you can see in him is that he can take it past a player. And also, I think if you simplify his game, I think you'll get better things out of him. So I think when he was at his best under Enzo, he was played into the last and shooting it in the net a lot of the time as well, right? So I think there is something there to do that. And I mean, put it this way, I think Daka could do a job here. Look, guys, you're going to hate me for saying that. I think Daka playing off Carranza could work as well, because I think then obviously you've got the two of them up there. But the one thing I will say as well, you obviously have noticed there's no Fatawu here, right?
Well, that I have written that down. Where the hell is Fatawu?
I was going to quickly mention that. Now, Fatawu here doesn't quite fit this system. And I was thinking about this and going, well, he is our best player. He's not had a few good games, right? Let's be honest. Does it deserve him being dropped? Probably not. But I still think you can't really pick a formation just based on that player playing. And I think I looked at the overall balance of this and went, do you know what? I think with Fatawu, you can have an option then in other games if we stuck with this formation and you want to be a bit more attacking to maybe play him instead of Ricardo. Because then we have a problem at right wing back where literally, like, if Ricardo's not there, it's got to be Hamza. or maybe a Luco, perhaps, if we want to get into that route. But then you slightly change the profile, because then you can maybe take Page off and go for maybe someone like a Sumare or maybe a Hamza, who can then be a bit more defensive minded to cover off the lack of defense on that right hand side there. So I think, there was ways around it with Fatu, and also maybe you can come into a free role where James is, maybe drift out wider. It's basically, about how we play him in that. But I also think increasing his unpredictability as a player will help him right now, because he's become very predictable, hasn't he?
He has, and I noticed that you gave me a full bench as well, which I haven't got a graphic for. Some people, teacher's pet. Was it you that sent me the apple? Was it, Dom?
It was the one with the worm in it.
Is it a case though, Craig, of Fatu has a bad game, Leicester have a bad game?
Not really. I think that's oversimplifying it. I think you're looking at Abdul sort of getting a little bit depressed, because there's so much expectation on him. He's still a young player, let's not forget that. But the expectation that he's going to turn something. It was interesting in the last game that he seemed to have been given a message of flick the ball into the box a bit more than taking on the shots. But that requires people to be in the box,
Yeah.
So I think
he did have the one effort where he had two players to his left that were going absolutely screaming mad at him because he put it into OF.
Yeah, I think, and this is, this is a bit of a stretch, but I think he should be looking at the likes of Mbappe. When Mbappe played a lot more off the left-hand side for a few years, and he was always cutting inside, but it wasn't predictable. He'd perfected the pulling the ball back into the near post rather than looking for the curler the whole time. And I'd like to see Abdul being a little bit more intelligent than what everybody's expecting him to do, because it's got to be precise. The keeper's reading it all the time. And I thought there was a perfect opportunity for him against Millwall to pull one back into the near post. But he's still learning, isn't he? And I think, the pressure needs to be taken off him by some of the other players, and maybe whether it's Tom's, whether it's mine, but a different formation, giving him a little bit of freshness as well would help him.
Yeah.
Do you think that we expect too much of these players because they've suddenly had a good game or you think of Fatu, well, he's been with us 2 seasons. Well, yeah, but he's only actually played for one because he was out for virtually the whole of last season, and obviously Cooper didn't pick him when he was fit at the start. But I'm going to come on to 2 interesting points before we get on to mine. First of all, have you seen Vardy got his first goal for Keramose, however you pronounce it? I did. It was a typical poacher's goal. He stood there, but you've got to be in that position to it's like with Dakova Reed's goal. If you're not in that position, you're not going to score. I've got to say, though, his celebration was bloody impressive at his age. Thinking, God, don't put your back out, love. But yeah, pleased for him. 4th start, and he's 4th game, and he's got a goal, and they are sitting very nicely mid-table on that. Okay, 2 questions here. Interesting, a lot of people, and me included at the start of the season, were shouting youth, 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 youth. This is, and I think Tom calls it this, the golden generation that we have here. And yet, Tom, you've got one of those in, and Craig, you've got one of those in. Now, look, you might have someone on the bench, and you may have thought you would anyway, as well. But, should we have more youth players? Let's go to Craig first with that.
I think they've got to be integrated into a successful side. I don't think you can just throw a lot of them in and then it not work. It's very easy for everybody to say youth, youth, youth. If we'd have been even worse than we are now, and we could have been with just throwing a lot of youth, that one, where do you go from there? Because all you've done is you're having to take the youth out and put them back 6 months or whatever, and knocking their confidence. I think if you do it one at a time, you put them in, you take them out. You do the old okey cokey with the youth. That's essentially what you do. We did it with Louis Page. He had 2 or 3 opportunities early on. it seemed like he wasn't quite ready for it, wasn't ready for the speed and the physicality of it. So you take it back out again, put him where he's comfortable, let him hone his game again, get the confidence back, and then you pop him back in again. And I think that's the way you have to do it with youth. You know, if you're super successful, you can throw 4 youth players in because the other 7 are worldies. That's great. We're not in that. And I think you can put the youth back a little bit if you put too many of them in at the same time.
Very good point. What point do we become a successful side? Because the players we've got, we're back to polishing turds. You know, I don't think the team that we've got at the moment is going to be a successful side without changes.
But I don't know what the answer to that is. I don't think throwing a load of youth in, unless you're prepared to say, right, we're going to sit in the middle bottom half of the table, and we're just going to. We're going to see where it takes us, which is great if you haven't got a points deduction hanging over you, because all of a sudden that arrives and then you're right in it. I don't think this season is the time to be doing it unless I think if we got to a position where we know we're at least safe, but realistically we're not going to be pushing for the top 2 at least. I think then you will see a few more youth players given an opportunity.
Tom, I get what Craig is saying, but if we don't see what the youth can do now, and we have some money to spend in January, because hopefully come January we should know about the points deductions. We all, everybody's sort of kind of guessing. I mean, you're wondering whether there will be one. I have to say, I'll take that bet up with you. But if come January we do have a bit of money to play with because we didn't spend anything in January, if we then are looking at saying, well, we need a new centre back, let's go and buy a new centre back. Well, that's again blocking a route for Nelson, isn't it?
Well, potentially, but I'd also say you've chosen the wrong example there because centre backs we've only got 4. Including Nelson right now.
But it was an example. Yeah.
But I know what you're saying there. Yeah, but I don't think there's anyone who could, in the centre backs in the under 21s who can step up into the first team yet, particularly. And like Craig said, it's really selective on the individual. Let's look at Monga as a good example here, guys. Everyone at the start of the season was saying Monga's got to start. Monga's got to start. Monga's got to start. The last couple of games, people are going, well, he doesn't track back. He doesn't do this. He doesn't do that. So we got to get the balance right of how we introduce these players. And I think Monga is much better as an impact sub, which suits where his profile is. I would agree that people like Jake Evans, for example, you could say would probably need to be considered as impact subs now, perhaps. Aluko, especially with the mobility he carries on the ball when he's when we haven't got that in the other right wing back option or left wing back option potentially. But like you said, and rightly so, it is a balance of the two, isn't it?
Totally, and I get that, and you can't just throw. Germany are the kings at doing this for their national team.
Yeah,
over a period of time, they slowly integrate the youngsters in.
I think we're a little bit haunted by the fact we feel some players didn't get an opportunity at the right time before. Like maybe you could argue Will Alves was probably ready a couple of years to have a look at them. And now obviously he's had a major injury in that time and it's looking like it's going the opposite direction. And I think that has probably given us a little bit of a jadedness in our heads about, are we acting quick enough on some of these youngsters as well, Chris?
Craig, a point that Tom made there, it's a fair point. We do say, as I said the other day, Thomas is suffering because Monga doesn't do, defensive. But, we love him for his attacking. But we wouldn't have known that if he hadn't been playing him as regularly as he has.
No, but that's why I come back to my point of you put them in for a few games and you take them out. That's what you have to do. But you have to do it selectively. In the right formation with the right players around them to get the best out of them. In an ideal world, we'd be strong enough defensively and midfieldly. And I said this right at the start of the season. For me, midfield and particularly defensive midfield is where we're lacking. If we'd got that sorted and that was strong, then the requirement of Monga to track back isn't as much and he can concentrate on his offensive play. Because we're not having as much of the ball as we thought we probably would have this season, is being asked to track back. And then clearly, you're finding out where his weaknesses are, and the idea is then that you go back and he either has a desire to work on that or he doesn't. He may think that he can go somewhere else and where he won't be asked, to track back. He'll go to a Man City and not asked to be tracked back. He'll also be asked not to try and take players on either.
Yes, yeah. Look, I don't want to give anything away about my team that I'm going to be bringing up in a second, but I'm going to mention two names to you both here. And Tom, let's come to you first. And these are players that you've not included in your starting lineup, and I have to say, not even on the bench here, Tom. Like I said, please, this is no clue as to where I'm going, but for neither of you do I see a Sumare or a Skip in your starting lineup. Do you want to explain what, first of all, Tom, why?
Yeah, because I think really Sumare now, we might as well try and move beyond him. And also, I think we do need to sell him, especially with the room and money on the table. I think, it's at that position, isn't it, of the football club? And I think for Skip, look, I wanted to work with Skip. He's our longest contracted player, but he doesn't particularly look happy to be here. He's had an opportunity and he seems to not even get a look in. He's been sat on the bench now for numerous games and he never comes on. And you've got like all these substitutions you can make. He never comes on. It suggests to me that something is wrong there. And I just think ultimately that there's no point forcing the issue if it's not going to work. So I think we need to look beyond it. I think Craig is right. I think in defensive mid we've looked weak, and they've probably been part of the reason for that, in all honesty. So I look at Henry Cartwright out on loan and go, look, I'm not sure he's tearing up any trees too much, but should we have kept him perhaps? Because maybe that would have given him, as someone who might have been ready to do a Monga thing, come and have a few minutes to see how he got on. Maybe that would have made things easier as well to not put ourselves in this position, if you see what I mean, Chris.
Yeah. You've got neither of them in either, Craig? A surprise?
I'll tell you one thing, and it probably says everything, that Skip didn't even come into my thinking at all. It didn't cross my mind. And when you were saying there was a couple of players, I was trying to think who you were going to mention, because I said this. I said this early on. Skip is never going to be a player who commands the midfield, ever. It's not. He doesn't have the character. He's there to be the sort of cleaner up behind someone else who's more creative. He hasn't got the strength of character. He hasn't got the voice. He looks like he's won a raffle to come and play, to be honest. And that's no friends, and I go back, he's a decent enough player and he's had good games. He's had good games in Europe for Spurs. By all accounts, when he was at Norwich on loan, he had a fantastic season. But for some reason, I think that's been knocked out of him confidence-wise. And for me, you ship him out on loan, because the problem with these, as you said, is they sit on the bench blocking the opportunities for someone else. It's one thing not playing the 20 odd million long contracted player. It's another one to not have him on the bench at all. So you have an issue there that the people above you will be asking a lot of questions, saying, hang on, how come this has happened? So for me, you ship him out on loan. It's good for him. He gets to play football, and we have a space on the bench that we can put one of these other youngsters in.
What's interesting about him is that like we've tried him as a box-to-box sort of role, haven't we? And he's not really excelled at that. And then you think, okay, he's not very good at that. Then maybe he should be a ball-winning midfielder. But like Craig rightly says, he doesn't really have the presence to do that either. So he kind of falls into the category of he's going to be third choice or fourth choice right now in any of the midfield positions. Hams is a better ball-winning midfielder than Skip is.
The Spurs fans were sad to see him go. That was the feedback I was getting. But like I say, surprises, and no Daka. I mean, that was the other surprise as well. Maybe I'm going to correct these 3 points, players that you have so carelessly, cast aside. Tom, we've been saying, and I've stopped saying this now, that, well, look, it's still like Martin's got his pre-season hat on, and he only came in for us one game before the season kicked off, and it was. We can't carry on. We are a quarter of the way through the season. On Saturday, we start the second quarter. I do sound like an American commentator here, don't I? But I mean, he should be starting to know what his best team is, and he should be starting to know which players are crap.
Yeah, I think part of the problem is like he views the championship as I view the championship in this way. It's more of a squad game because of the fixtures you've got, right? Because we do have the midweeks into the weekends quite a lot as well. So you can't rely entirely on the 11. You've also got to include a squad, right? And I think, like Craig rightly said, there is more to be said for having a more stable team. This is why I think Marty's getting a bit of stick now, because I think when you see, and I'll go back to the James example again, when you see James excelling at that box-to-box or roaming playmaker role in the centre midfield, and then an injuries happen and he's ended up going back to attacking mid, that disrupts that progress, doesn't it? And I think that hasn't helped the situation. It has led us onto this path now where I think players' heads are dropped. I'm not going to beat around the bush here. We've got a fragile mentality in the team generally, and I think that's because of the experience they went through last year as well. I think a lot of that comes from last year, from Ruud van Nistelrooy, maybe even a bit of Cooper, because they didn't particularly, by all accounts, not that we want to believe in hearsay too much, but particularly like Cooper either. So there's something that's gone wrong there. There's something where they need a bit of propping up in that regard, and that's why we're doing this show tonight, mate, aren't we? Because we're looking at other ways around that.
Now, I have to say, Paul, a man of vision. I'm going to put my Mike Bassett hat on here and say that we should be playing. Sorry, this is just a personal thing. R.I.P. Prunella Scales. It is very scary that only just last week I was watching Fawlty Towers to play. And if you like Fawlty Towers and you get a chance to see the play, you know what jokes are coming. You can see them coming 10 lines before they do, and you still end up laughing. It is a really good play. Sorry, that's just a thought I'd like to mention.
I've seen it, Chris. Yeah.
It is, isn't it? You know that moose is going to fall on his head, but you still laugh when it happens.
Yeah.
Very clever how they got 3 or 4 shows all tied into the one. Very, very clever. Very funny. So R.I.P. Prunella Scales. FF in 2. We really need to get back to basics. Paul, a man after my own heart. I agree with you. I have gone 4-4-2. So look, you can pull this apart now for me if you want to, which I'm sure you're going to. Don't look quite so keen to there. So look, what I've done is let me just get it up here on the big screen. Obviously, still Archie in goal. It goes without saying. A back 4. And despite what I said earlier, yes, Ricardo, Nelson and Vestergaard together, and Christensen. Across the middle, Fataru, James, Winks and Mavadidi. Up front, I have gone with Carranza again. So, I'm agreeing with you on that one. And I've stuck Monger in that number 10 role just to create havoc. Just look, we know what he can do on the wing. Just let him run about and confuse everybody and go in. And like I say, I am old. And when I did coach one of my son's youth teams, and I have to say, I played 4-4-2. All right, this was 20-odd years ago. I played 4-4-2, and I won the game. I was there was 3 coaches. I was the only one to win a game that season. The fact that the opposition only had 9 players is neither here nor there. We never told the kids that. But as far as I was concerned, it was a win. I would love to try that. A couple, as you said, Tom, a couple of teams already are playing 4-4-2 in this league.
Yeah, I would argue that the ones that are playing 4-4-2, it hasn't quite worked out for them because they're down towards the bottom. But I know, but look, it's about execution, right? Isn't it? Let's be honest. I like your Monger thing here because it was brought up earlier in the chat. And I wanted to mention it at the time, but I do see what you guys are getting at with Monger as maybe playing as a 10 or in this sort of position, because the thing he's really good at is close skill with the ball, isn't he? I think actually his ability to ball at his feet in tight spots is remarkable. And like you say, if you put him on a tram line, as someone said, perhaps that can take away from the best part of his game. So I can see that as something that can work in that regard, Chris. So I'm not against your teammate at all. I do wonder about Nelson and Vestergaard because they're kind of similarly profiled. But if you've got a solid back 4, I kind of get it. So no, I think it's a good team, mate.
I mean, I've got to say thank you, Ronald. And Paul, great team, and I like that formation.
I think they came in late and didn't see mine. I think that's
They're still trying to work yours out, mate. I mean, that role that I've got Monger in there, to me, you could put Mavididi in there. You could put Fatawu in there. You know, if you imagine, for me, Fatawu is a bit of a one-trick pony at the moment. You know that, if you put him onto the inside, he's going to take a shot. And if the defender does that, he knows that probably 8 times out of 10, it's going to go Rosette. So why not try him in, or Mavididi or Monger in that role, and just see what they can do, Craig?
Yeah, I'm not convinced about Monger in the 10 at all. Throughout all of his career, he hasn't played there. Someone can correct me, and they probably will. But it was interesting because most of the stuff I saw from when he was playing in the under-18s and the under-21s, he was playing on the right-hand side and cutting in rather than on the left-hand side, which is where we've played him. I think when you're in that position there, you get crowded out very easily. You have to play a lot with your back to the goal. You're having to receive the ball into the feet, which he might be able to do. I'm not sure at his age whether that's the right thing for him, but if he's good enough, he can do it. But the way you described him, putting him in there to cause havoc, if that's your number one role, then Daka does that.
Yeah, but if Daka does cause havoc and actually manages a shot on goal, he isn't going to score. At least Monger, we know he knows where the net is. But do you? And I can't name any of these.
Does he, Chris?
He scored a goal, hasn't he?
A goal, yeah. He scored a goal.
Well, it's more than Daka scored.
It's more than Daka.
Yeah.
But again,
when did Daka last score his goal? I need to do this, actually. I think it's something like a year.
Yeah, have the ticker on. You used to have him for Spurs winning a trophy. Now that's been buggered.
Yes, yeah. This is just going to go on. Do you remember I did that thing? How many days we went without scoring a goal last season?
I remember.
I think I need to do another one for Daka.
The thing with 4-4-2 is it works if you've got the right players, and I can't see Winks being part of that at all, to be honest, because he's just slow,
But you got James next to him. You got 3 fast players, so you got him more in that holding role. He doesn't need to be fast.
He needs to move the ball fast. He doesn't need to be fast. No. He needs to move the ball. The fastest thing on the pitch is the ball. Yet Winks and Vestergaard to a certain bit, more so Winks when he should be progressive. And you see, again, just watch Winks sometimes. When he gets the ball on the edge of the box or whatever, and he'll have people bombing past him, he won't pass it. He'll run with it. Then he'll wait for his winger to get closed up. And then he'll give him the ball where he's got nothing that he can do with it. He's a bloody liability.
It's amazing. It's amazing because I was going to say, quickly, how many times have I been telling Winks off for the last few weeks, Chris? And everyone's been going, "Oh, he's man of the match," and I've been going, "You watched him, Craig? Thank you. I feel like you're the only person that understood me the last 2 weeks."
And yet you put him in your team.
Yeah, but I'm picking for a certain role, Chris, and I'm making a role for him.
These are all for certain roles. And how often, and I can't, nobody springs to mind, and it isn't something that happens all the time, but occasionally there are players that have started the career out as a defender, and suddenly a manager comes in and goes, "Oh, let's try him up front." And he goes and I don't mean Steve Walsh, but I mean those that do it permanently. Managers will come in and sometimes look at players and go, "Look, he's only just turned 16, so we probably don't even know what his best position is."
I think the thing with Monger is interesting, though. What Craig actually kind of said it when he's been playing out on that left-hand side. The thing he's actually been really good at is he's come under 2 players normally, and he's actually always held the ball well and always laid it off really well every time. So that kind of does fit the 10. But I get he's never played there. But I think he could do it because he's been much better than Mavididi at doing that.
Look, none of these are going to happen, and I'm not saying mine is any better or worse than Craig's or Tom's here. They're all we've all come and I've gone for 4-4-2 because I wanted to be different to you two, and I happen to like 4-4-2. Somebody said there, if nothing's working, go back to basics. Quite right. And Daedalus says there, Monger is a number 10. it's opinions. It's all about opinions, And if if Munger's there just running about, I think he'll just he'll free other people up. That's the thing. Even when Vardy wasn't scoring for us, the thing that he was doing well was taking other players away to free up the space for other players. Can't wait to see this team.
Chris, sorry, for those who have come in late, is it worth just putting the 3 up?
Well, I think we've got the best one up there already, haven't we?
Well, you started that by saying I think.
Here we go then. Here we go. For those of you that have come in late, first of all, why? Secondly, have you got a note from your mother? And thirdly, let's have a look. So,
and pick your favourites. Pick your favourites in the chat, guys. Come on.
Yeah, that's a point. So, look, we'll start with we'll do this the right way so it doesn't get confusing. We'll start with Craig's, because Craig was number 1 because he went first. He's gone for 5-1-3-1, which I can kind of see how it works because going forward it goes to a back 3. So it's when I actually gave it on.
Yeah.
Sorry? Yeah. So I was joking at the start about what the hell is that, but yeah, I saw how you would fit in it. So basically, that is Craig. Well, I tell you what, put the name down. That's the easiest thing. Craig, Tom, Chris. That's Craig's with his 5-1-3-1. Alternative, different, and it may confuse the opposition, but will it confuse our players as well? Tom has gone for 3-5-2. Look, first one. There we go. Well done, Paul. 3-5-2, which again is what a lot of people have been shouting, and this really is probably Marty's backup formation, isn't it? He goes to that when he makes his changes and what have you. And quite often we've looked better when he's put on that. We had those
we battered Hull with it, didn't we? We just didn't score.
Yeah. And you could argue it's 4-4-2. Who plays that anymore? Yes, we won the World Cup with it, but that was back in 1966. And Dealer said, just seen Craig's team. James at number 10 and Faze in the DM is never an option. Like I say, opinions, Daedalus, it's opinions. Ricky's gone for 3-5-2. Like I say, it is all about opinions. I mean, we're never going to see 4-4-2 in my lifetime again. I'll be 6 foot under and watching it from up there. Well, probably down there, if I'm honest. And I don't mean in Audi. Look, it's all about opinions. Guys, carry on commenting. Even when we've gone, you can do that. And if you're watching it on catch up, get your thoughts in the comments below which one you go for. They've all got their merits. To be totally honest with you, mine's never going to happen. But the other two, like you say, have your votes, guys. Have your votes. We are back tonight at 9:00 with the Late Football Show, where we will be discussing Brendan Rodgers. Is he divisive and toxic? The manager's merry-go-round. What's happened to Liverpool? They've they've sort of fallen off the cliff a bit, haven't they? The 3 promoted sides, none of them are in the bottom 3. And the 3 relegated sides, none of them are in the top 3. And Burnley suing Everton and agreeing an out-of-court settlement for when they got relegated. Interesting. And tomorrow, 7:00, join us because we'll be talking owners. And these two both chickened out of that particular show. So if you're interested, join me tomorrow. Thanks, Craig. Thanks, Tom. Appreciate it. I thought that was very, very interesting. And thank you for your opinions. Obviously, your opinions were wrong, but thank you for them anyway. You going to Blackburn, Craig? Or are you going to Leicester to watch Blackburn?
Yes, I'll be there watching my formation rip them apart.
I can't wait to see Wout Faze go running through, mate, and score the goal.
Exactly.
If it turns up as that, I'm going to send you some money. If that is the formation he starts with. And I think I'm safe there. Guys, Thank you very much. Take care. And thanks to everybody that was in the chat. Appreciate it. Remember, like, share, and subscribe. Same if you're watching on Catch Up. And thank you for lending us your ears if you've been listening by your favourite podcast platform. I will see you back in about 25 and a half minutes. Not that I'm counting. And we'll do what we always do, talk football. Thanks a lot, everybody, and good night.
Thanks for watching. These videos are tremendous. You better like them too, or I'll be back.
This podcast is proud to be part of the TalkSport Fan Network. TalkSport. Powered by fans.
That will conclude this evening's entertainment.